Welcome to Love Chats. I'm Dr. Kathryn Elliott, and today's topic is, does love have to hurt? What came to my mind that made me think of this topic was the old song that began with this guy wailing out, "Love hurts, love scars." And I remember singing along with it as I drove my Opel Kadett as a teenager, and I I felt that way. Love hurts. But now that I'm a marriage and family therapist, I think to myself, yes, hurt comes with love, but it doesn't have to be that way. And the way I know that is that there's been research done by John Gottman in Seattle who watched couples trying to discern whose marriage would survive and who would divorce. And what he found was the couples whose conversations began with what he called harsh startups would end up divorcing. But those who had goodwill to each other and began with softened startups actually were able to stay together and work things out. So what came to my mind was, how can we help couples attend to their hurt that they're triggering in each other or that they're bringing into the relationship? And so as Jim, my husband, and I, who were both therapists, worked together, we discovered something that would make all the difference in the world when couples were hurting. And I want to share that with you today. The concept I want to give you is the concept of the lament. The lament is the term that we give to an expression of emotional pain. So I always tell my clients, you know, when you get up in the morning and you're down in the back and you call out, "Oh," like that, that's a lament, but it's a lament of physical pain. Well, we're accustomed to attending to each other's physical pains. Like we'll say to our partner who gets up and cries out in pain, "Oh, is your back hurting? Why don't you go take an Advil?" So we automatically respond to each other in physical pain, but we miss over and over again each other's cries of emotional pain. Now, so how do you catch it when your partner is lamenting? There are characteristic ways that people lament and cry out their emotional pain. One is tears. That's the most obvious one to see. If someone's crying, we pretty much can say they must be in pain. But there are some less obvious ones that are also expressions of pain. One of them is complaints. "You never take out the garbage. You never take me out anymore. We never have sex anymore." Those complaints, guess what? They're cries of pain. Another thing that we do to express emotional pain is we criticize each other. Can you believe it? Criticisms are cries of pain. And another one that may really surprise you is withdrawal. When a partner withdraws from another, they're actually trying to deal with their pain, and they're also trying to say, "I'm in pain, I've got to get away." So if you can be listening for your partners evidencing that they're in pain, you will be catching their lament. So once you're adept at catching the lament, what do? Well, we found a way that you can actually help each other. And this is one of the great gifts of intimate relationships. We can actually heal each other's pain. And we've called it a rather amazing thing. It's called the Anesthetic Sacrament. Anesthetic therapy is the therapy that I do and that my husband James Elliott initiated and developed back in the 1960s. It comes from the Greek word "anthein," meaning to blossom. We try to help couples and individuals clear away all those blocks so they can blossom, whether individually or together as a couple. So the Anesthetic Sacrament is a way of giving each other deep empathy. Because you know what? When we're hurting, what is it we really need? Emotionally, we need to know we're heard, we're understood, and we're empathized with. We want to know you're with me in this. You're containing me, you're holding me, you care, with empathy. And when we say the empathetic sacrament to each other, I have watched it in my office over and over. It takes on a sacredness, a sacred moment. Not a religious sacrament, it's a psychological or relationship sacrament, but the room transforms when partners do this for each other. So I'm going to give this to you right now, even though we've written it up in great detail in our book, Creating Optimal Relationships. I'm going to give it to you right now in brief. What your partner needs when he or she laments is two things. They need empathy, and they need someone to champion them. And by champion them, I mean to have their back, to say, I'm on your side, I'm with you as you are hurting. And so, this very simple sentence, if you will say this to a partner who's crying, complaining, criticizing, if you will say, or even withdrawing, if you will say this empathetic sacrament, it sounds like this. I'm so sorry that you're hurting like this because you don't deserve it. And when people hear this, they melt. I discovered this by accident with a couple I was working with who were having these cyclic arguments that kept coming around. She would say, you never listen to me. And he would say, nothing I do is ever enough. And they would get into just volatile arguments where one would go storming into another room and slam the door. The other one would end up in tears. And I just thought, you know what, they're hurting and they need to hear from the other one that they're hurt and they're pain. And so I just thought, let me say to her, can you see his pain and you know his history? And she said, yeah, I know his history, that he's been hurt as a child. And I said, would you tell him I'm so sorry that you were so hurt, so young, but also that there are times when I say things that feels like nothing you do is ever enough. And he began to have a tear run down his cheek and grabbed her hand. And then I said to him, you know her history with her mother, who, if she told her mother, I'm hurting about something, Mom, her mom would say, oh, go away, you're just crazy. And so she never felt listened to. And I said, you know that about her pain? And he said, I do. I said, can you tell her, I'm so sorry that your mother treated you that way when you wanted to have comfort, and that sometimes it feels like I do that too. And when he said that to her, she began to cry, and they were in each other's arms before I knew it. And I thought, this is a sacred moment. This is a moment that we all need. So try that today with your partner, with your friends, with your children, with your loved ones. When they cry or lament in some other fashion, just say, I'm so sorry you're hurting in this way. You don't deserve that. Even right now, as I'm telling you about it, I'm feeling tears because I'm back in that moment of how amazing that was to be in the presence of empathy. It's something divine. May you have that feeling too. Have a loving day.